Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Aliens take a week to navigate, humans just look at the stars. Senior Navigator Kryes Vorna stared at the holographic display with all 6 of his eyes, each one focused on a different calculation stream flowing through the massive computer core. The gentle hum of quantum processors filled the pristine white chamber of the High Council of Interstellar Navigation, a sound that normally brought him comfort. Today, however, it only served to remind him of their growing failure. Probability matrices still haven't converged, he announced to the assembled council members, his voice carrying notes of both exhaustion and frustration. For days of continuous processing, and we're barely at 60% confidence for the Alabar and trade route. Around the circular chamber, the other council members shifted uncomfortably in their gravity suspension chairs. Their species, the Zarian, prided themselves on having the most advanced computational systems in known space. They had spent millennia perfecting the art of calculating safe passage through the treacherous currents of hyperspace. Councillor Nara Taith, her crystalline skin refracting the blue light of the displays, spoke up. Perhaps we should consider splitting the calculation load between the Centaur hub and the Riel processing center. The added quantum bandwidth might. We tried that yesterday, Kryx cut her off, his facial tendrils curling in annoyance. The synchronization lag actually made the convergence slower. At this rate, the merchant fleet will be delayed another 3 days while we finish these calculations. The chamber fell silent except for the persistent hum of the processors. This was becoming an increasingly common problem as trade routes expanded and traffic increased. The computational demands for safe navigation grew exponentially. What once took their ancestors mere hours now consumed days or even weeks of processing time. The Merchant Guild is growing impatient, said Administrator Pex Doran, his normally luminescent skin dulled with stress. They're threatening to petition the Grand Assembly if we can't improve our calculation times. The delays are costing them billions in lost revenue. Kryx manipulated the holographic display, zooming out to show the full complexity of the route they were trying to map. Swirling vectors of probability clouds intersected with gravitational influence zones, creating a dizzying matrix of possible paths through hyperspace. The safe routes through this chaos could only be found through precise calculation of millions of variables. Look at this mess, he gestured with 3 of his arms while the other 3 continued inputting adjustments to the algorithms. The Aldebaran sector has developed 3 new pulsar anomalies in the past stellar cycle. Each one adds another layer of gravitational complexity to account for. Our ancestors never had to deal with this level of computational density. A soft chime interrupted his explanation. One of the junior navigators, Trix Veered, hurried into the chamber, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with excitement. Senior Navigator, we're picking up something unusual on the long-range sensors. A ship just emerged from hyperspace in Sector 7. That's impossible, Kryx said, his tendrils stiffening. We haven't calculated any safe routes through that sector in over a month. No ship would be foolish enough to. It's not one of ours, Trix interrupted, her voice quavering. The energy signature is completely unknown, and they're requesting permission to dock with the station. The council chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. Administrator Doran rose from his chair, his skin now pulsing with alarmed patterns of red and orange. Unknown ships don't just appear in the heart of Zorian space, not without spending weeks calculating a safe route through our security grids. Kryx turned all 6 eyes to the new sensor data streaming across his display. The ship's trajectory was unlike anything he'd ever seen. It had threaded through the gravitational maze of Sector 7 as if the hazards weren't even there. Either they had somehow made the calculations faster than any known computer core, or open a communication channel, he ordered, his scientific curiosity overriding protocol. I want to know how they managed this and, more importantly, why our security grid didn't detect them sooner. The unknown vessel docked with a smoothness that caught even Kryx off guard. Through the observation window, he studied its sleek but simple design, no quantum stabilizers, no probability field generators, just basic thrusters and what appeared to be, were those actually windows? Real, transparent windows in a spaceship. Preliminary scans complete, Senior Navigator, Trix reported, her bioluminescence now cycling through confused patterns. You're not going to believe this, but they're using mechanical computers, and their navigation system appears to be purely optical. Administrator Doran's skin flashed with patterns of disbelief. Impossible. No species could survive hyperspace travel with such primitive technology. The gravitational shears alone would tear their ship apart. The airlock cycled, and Crix felt his tendrils curl involuntarily at the sight of the alien that emerged, bipedal, with only 2 eyes and no bioluminescent capabilities at all. It wore what appeared to be a simple blue uniform with silver trim and carried what looked like a physical paper folder. How charmingly archaic. Permission to come aboard, the alien asked in perfect galactic standard. I'm Navigator Lisa Martinez of the Earth vessel Star Wanderer. We picked up your station on our long-range sensors and thought we'd say hello. Crix exchanged glances with Administrator Doran before responding. I am Senior Navigator Crix Vorna. Your arrival is unexpected. Our sensors show you traversed Sector 7 to reach us, but that's clearly impossible. The gravitational complexity alone requires weeks of computational time to plot a safe route. Lisa smiled, a gesture that made her face scrunch up in what Crix hoped was a non-threatening manner. Oh, that? We just followed the Carina arm. Pretty straightforward shot once you account for the pulsar drift. The casual dismissal of their most complex navigational challenge sent ripples of agitation through the assembled council members. Councillor Nara's crystalline skin practically vibrated with indignation. Straightforward. That sector contains 3 Class 4 pulsar anomalies. The gravitational interactions alone generate over 12 million variables that must be accounted for. Our most advanced quantum computers require days to calculate a single safe route. Lisa opened her paper folder and pulled out what appeared to be a hand-drawn star chart. Actually hand-drawn with some kind of primitive carbon marking device. Well, sure, if you're trying to calculate every possible outcome. But look here, she spread the chart on a nearby console. The pulsars actually create a nice triangulation point. You can use them to mark your position relative to the galactic plane. Then it's just basic celestial navigation from there. Crix felt his scientific curiosity warring with his professional pride. He gestured at their holographic displays showing the complex probability matrices. You can't be serious. Show me your navigation computer's calculations, the exact quantum algorithms you used. Oh, we don't use quantum computers for NAV, Lisa said, pulling out more hand-drawn charts. These are my working copies, but basically, we use visual confirmation of known star patterns combined with pulsar timing. Been doing it that way since before we had computers. My grandmother taught me the basics when I was a kid, just watching the stars from her backyard. Administrator Doran's skin had turned an alarming shade of pale green. You navigate hyperspace by looking at stars and timing pulsars without calculating probability matrices or gravitational intersections. Pretty much, Lisa nodded. I mean, we have computers to help with the math, but it's mostly just good old trigonometry and celestial mechanics. Speaking of which, she glanced at the massive display still trying to calculate the Aldine trade route. Looks like you're having trouble with that path. Mind if I take a look? The council chamber erupted in protests. Councillor T's crystalline form was practically strobing with agitation. This is absurd. We cannot allow an unproven alien methodology to interfere with our sacred navigational protocols. But Crix found himself oddly fascinated. Here was a species that had somehow achieved faster-than-light travel without developing the complex computational systems his people considered absolutely essential. Either they were complete fools who had somehow gotten lucky enough times to survive, or... Show me, he said, silencing the council's protests. Show me how you would plot this route. Lisa stepped up to the holographic display, her eyes scanning the swirling chaos of gravitational forces and probability clouds. She pulled a simple electronic tablet from her pocket. "Mind if I overlay our star charts on your display? It'll be easier to demonstrate that way." "Proceed," Crick said, ignoring Administrator Doran's sputtering objections. After all, what harm could there be in letting this primitive attempt their most complex calculation? At worst, it would prove the superiority of Zorian methods, and at best, well, that possibility was almost too radical to consider. News of the human navigator's unconventional method spread through the station like a quantum cascade. Within hours, the High Council chamber had been transformed into an impromptu arena with observation galleries packed with curious Zorian scientists and navigators. "The terms of the challenge are simple," Administrator Doran announced, his skin pulsing with formal patterns of blue and gold. "Navigator Martinez will attempt to plot a safe route through the Carina-Sagittarius trade corridor. This is no mere theoretical exercise. The merchant fleet awaits a viable path, and billions in commerce hang in the balance." Lisa stood calmly at her assigned console, arranging her paper charts and simple electronic tablet. She had changed into her formal Earth Navigation Service uniform, its crisp lines and polished insignia drawing curious stares from the assembled aliens. "For the sake of fairness," Crix added, "we've selected a route that even our quantum cores haven't fully mapped yet. The corridor contains 7 pulsar anomalies, 3 stellar nurseries with unpredictable gravitational fluctuations, and a recently collapsed star creating time-space distortions." Counselor T's crystalline form sparkled with barely contained skepticism. "Our preliminary calculations suggest a minimum of 9 days to compute a safe passage. That's using our full distributed computing network. The stakes are considerable," Administrator Doran continued. "Should Navigator Martinez succeed in plotting a viable route in less time than our systems, the High Council will be obligated to consider human navigational methods as valid for all registered trade routes. However, should she fail, Earth ships will be required to follow Zarian calculated routes exclusively. Which means waiting weeks for computations and paying premium rates for the privilege." "Yeah, I got it," Lisa finished for him, smiling. "Mind if I get started? This might take me a few hours." "Hours?" Trix whispered to Crix, her bioluminescence flickering with amusement. "She can't be serious." Crix gestured to the main holographic display. It sprang to life, showing the full complexity of the challenge route. The massive projection filled the chamber with a swirling three-dimensional maze of gravitational forces, radiation zones, and probability vectors. "The corridor spans approximately 2,500 light-years," he explained for the benefit of the observers. "A ship must successfully navigate between these stellar nurseries." He pointed to 3 massive clouds of roiling plasma and newborn stars. "Their gravitational effects are chaotic and constantly shifting." "That's actually helpful," Lisa commented, sketching something in her notebook. "Young stars make excellent brightness reference points." Crix continued, trying to ignore her bizarre comment. "The collapsed star here creates a time-space distortion field extending across 60 light-years. Our computers must calculate millions of potential temporal variations for each possible route." "Oh, we just go around that," Lisa said absently, adding more notes to her charts. "The gravimetric bow wave makes a nice pointer to the safe passage." Administrator Doran's skin flushed with patches of irritated red. "You can't just go around a temporal distortion field. The mathematical complexity." "Sure you can," Lisa interrupted. "Ships have been sailing around whirlpools since ancient times. Same principle, just bigger scale. The physics doesn't change just because the numbers get larger." The chamber erupted in murmurs of disbelief and outrage. Crick found himself fascinated by the human's apparent inability to grasp the true complexity of the challenge. Or was she grasping it in a way their mathematics-obsessed minds couldn't comprehend? "The primary challenge," he pressed on, "comes from the pulsar network. 7 millisecond pulsars, each affecting local spacetime. Their overlapping gravity waves create zones of probability flux that must be calculated to 99.9% accuracy. Lisa looked up from her charts with genuine interest. 7 pulsars. That's perfect. Better than the 3 we used to get here. More reference points mean better triangulation. Triangulation. Counselor Tate practically vibrated with derision. These are not simple distance markers. They are complex gravitational sources affecting the very fabric of spacetime. Yeah, and they spin at incredibly precise rates, Lisa agreed. Like really accurate lighthouses or a galactic GPS network, if you want a more modern comparison. Crick watched in fascination as she began marking points on her charts, occasionally consulting her tablet for what appeared to be simple mathematical calculations. No probability matrices, no quantum algorithmic projections. Just geometry. The challenge officially begins now, Administrator Doran announced. Our quantum cores are already processing. Navigator Martinez, you may access any computational resources you require. Thanks, but I've pretty much got it, Lisa said, making a final mark on her chart. Just need to double-check my pulsar timing sequences. The chamber fell silent. Even the ever-present hum of the quantum cores seemed muted. Got what? Crix asked carefully. The route, Lisa replied, looking up with that strange human smile. I can plot it for you now if you'd like. Should take about 20 minutes to lay out the full course with all the navigation markers, assuming your holographic display can handle simple vector graphics. Administrator Doran's skin went completely white. Counselor T's crystalline form froze mid-sparkle. Trix dropped her data pad. Crix found his voice first. You're saying you've already solved it? Well, yeah. The pulsars make it pretty straightforward once you have their timing benchmarks. Like I said, better than using just 3 of them, though I did have to account for that stellar nursery's radiation scatter. That part was actually kind of tricky. She held up one of her hand-drawn charts, covered in simple geometric lines and angles. To Crick's eyes, it looked like the work of a child compared to their quantum probability projections. Yet something about its elegant simplicity nagged at his scientific mind. Shall I input the course? Lisa asked innocently, apparently unaware that she'd just turned the High Council's entire understanding of navigation upside down. Administrator Doran's skin had begun showing stress patterns never before recorded in Zorian medical history. Proceed, he managed to croak out. But I warn you, if this is some kind of joke. No joke, Lisa said, connecting her tablet to the main display. Though I should probably explain how to read the reference markers. Your ship's crews might not be used to visual navigation signals. While Lisa worked on inputting her route, the Zorian quantum cores continued their relentless calculations. Crix watched the probability streams flow through the processors, each new iteration adding layers of complexity to their mathematical model. Processing Node 7 has encountered a quantum uncertainty loop, Trix reported, her bioluminescence pulsing with worry. Rerouting through the backup arrays. Crix manipulated the control interfaces with all 6 arms, trying to optimize the calculation streams. The holographic displays showed the massive computational network stretched across 3 star systems, each quantum core processing trillions of calculations per second, the combined computing power of their entire civilization. Yet the progress bar seemed frozen at 12.3%. Quantum coherence is destabilizing in the center hub, Counselor Tate announced, her crystalline form reflecting the red warning lights now flashing across multiple displays. The gravitational variables from the stellar nurseries are creating too many branching probability paths. Administrator Doran paced the chamber, his skin cycling through stressed patterns of orange and purple. How many variables are we tracking now? Current count is at 24. 47 million primary vectors, Crix replied, with approximately 892 billion secondary interaction points. He gestured at the swirling chaos of their probability model. The collapsed star's temporal distortion field alone requires 43 million calculations per cubic light-year of space. The quantum cores hummed louder, their crystalline matrices glowing brighter as they struggled with the computational load. A warning chime sounded from one of the monitoring stations. "We just lost synchronization with the Riel Processing Center," Trix reported. "The quantum entanglement links are showing strain from the data volume." Crick felt his tendrils curling with frustration. This was exactly the problem they'd been facing more and more frequently as trade routes expanded and space traffic increased. The computational demands grew exponentially, their most advanced technology, the pride of Zorian civilization, was being overwhelmed by its own thoroughness. "Perhaps we could reduce the accuracy threshold," Counselor Taith suggested, her voice wavering. "Say to 99.5% instead of 99.9%. "Unacceptable." Administrator Doran snapped, his skin flashing danger patterns. "The last time we tried that, we lost a cargo ship to a Class 2 probability flux. The insurance claims nearly bankrupted the Merchant Guild." Another warning chime, this one more urgent. The main probability display flickered, showing critical instability in their computational model. "The stellar nursery variables are cascading," Crix announced, his tendrils now fully coiled with stress. "Each gravitational fluctuation is creating new probability branches faster than we can process them." The chamber's observers murmured with concern as they watched the calculation progress bar actually decrease, dropping to 11.9%. Trix's bioluminescence had faded to a dull, worried gray. "Quantum coherence failing in processing nodes 12 to 15, she reported. "The probability matrices are becoming too complex for stable computation." Crix manipulated the control interfaces, desperately trying to stabilize their calculations. The holographic display showed their computational model starting to break down, probability streams tangling into impossible knots of mathematical complexity. "We need to restart the entire calculation sequence," he finally admitted, his voice heavy with defeat. "The current model has become too unstable. Trix, begin emergency shutdown of all processing nodes. Counselor Taith, please prepare the quantum cores for a cold restart." Administrator Doran's skin went almost black with dismay. "A complete restart? That will cost us at least 2 days of processing time." "We have no choice," Crix explained, shutting down the primary probability streams one by one. "The complexity cascade has corrupted too many calculation paths. We need to reset all quantum states and rebuild the model from scratch." The chamber filled with the sound of powering down processors, their familiar hum fading to silence. Crix watched the final probability streams dissolve from the display, representing weeks of continuous calculation lost in moments. "How long until we can resume processing?" Administrator Doran asked, his skin still showing distress patterns. "The quantum cores require 6 hours to reset to their ground states," Counselor Taith replied, her crystalline form dimmed with embarrassment. "Then we'll need at least 4 hours to re-establish quantum entanglement between all processing centers." Crix began preparing the new calculation parameters, already dreading the time it would take to rebuild their computational model. "We should be able to resume primary processing in approximately 10 hours. However, we'll be starting completely fresh. All previous progress is lost." The observers in the gallery watched in shocked silence as the mighty Zorian navigation system, the most advanced computational network known to spacefaring civilization, slowly went dark. Warning lights continued to flash across dead displays, highlighting the magnitude of their failure. And through it all, in the corner of the chamber, Lisa Martinez continued calmly marking her paper charts, occasionally glancing up at the stellar positions visible through the station's observation windows. While the Zorian quantum cores underwent their lengthy restart process, Lisa cleared her throat. "So, would now be a good time to show you what I've worked out?" The chamber had grown quiet enough to hear the station's environmental systems. Crix turned all 6 eyes toward her, his tendrils uncurling with reluctant curiosity. "You finished plotting your route?" "Been done for about 20 minutes, Lisa said, connecting her tablet to the main holographic display. "Was just double-checking my math while your computers were having their meltdown." The display flickered to life, showing a surprisingly simple three-dimensional map of the trade corridor. But instead of probability clouds and quantum matrices, Lisa had marked it with clear lines and reference points. "Okay, so here's how this works," she began, highlighting several bright stars. "These are your primary navigation markers. Young, bright stars from those stellar nurseries you were so worried about. They're perfect reference points because they're easy to spot and their positions are well documented." Administrator Doran's skin rippled with confusion. "But their gravitational effects are completely predictable," Lisa finished. "Young stars are actually more stable than older ones in terms of their gravitational output. No solar flares, no coronosphere fluctuations. They're like freshly installed lighthouse beacons." She highlighted another set of points on the map. "Now these are your pulsar timing markers. 7 of them arranged in what we call a timing lattice. Each pulsar spins at a unique, highly precise rate. By measuring the timing differences between their pulses, you can triangulate your exact position in three-dimensional space." "That's absurdly simple," Trix said, her bioluminescence showing patterns of disbelief. "Simple works," Lisa shrugged. "Humans navigated Earth's oceans for thousands of years using nothing but stars and simple math. Space just gives us more reference points to work with." She zoomed in on the collapsed star's distortion field. "Now, this part is pretty neat. See how the gravitational distortion creates this spiral pattern? It's basically a galactic-scale whirlpool, and just like a water whirlpool, it creates a bow wave that points to the safest passage around it." Crix found himself drawn closer to the display, his scientific mind engaging despite his skepticism. "But how do you account for the temporal variations?" "We don't," Lisa said simply. "We just stay in the stable zones where spacetime behaves normally. Look," she traced a line through her plotted course. "By using the pulsar timing lattice as our baseline, we can identify areas where time flows consistently. Then we plot our course through those zones using the bright stars as visual waypoints." She highlighted a series of interconnected triangles formed by her reference stars. Each leg of the journey has at least 3 bright reference points forming a navigation triangle. Ships can verify their position visually at any time by measuring stellar angles. No quantum calculations needed. The chamber had gone completely silent. Even Administrator Doran's skin had stopped its stress patterns, frozen in a state of shocked contemplation. "But what about the probability matrices?" Counselor Tay asked, her crystalline form reflecting the simple geometry of Lisa's route. "The quantum uncertainty factors." Lisa smiled patiently. "Think about it this way, when you're driving a ground vehicle, do you calculate every possible path your wheels might take, or do you just stay on the road and watch where you're going? That's completely different." Tate protested. "Spacetime navigation is infinitely more complex than." "Is it though?" Lisa interrupted gently. "Space is mostly empty. Really empty. The gaps between dangerous areas are way bigger than the dangerous areas themselves. Instead of calculating every possible way things could go wrong, we just plot a course through the known safe zones and keep our eyes open." She zoomed out to show the entire route. "The whole corridor is like a highway system. You've got your lane markers," she pointed to the reference stars, "your mile markers," she indicated the pulsars, and your hazard signs, she highlighted the visible distortion patterns around dangerous areas. Any ship with basic sensors and a competent navigator can follow this route, she concluded. They can verify their position constantly using visual references, confirm their timing using the pulsar lattice, and make course corrections based on direct observation rather than theoretical calculations. Crix moved closer to the display, his tendrils now showing patterns of intense scientific curiosity. This is how your people have been navigating all along. No quantum calculations at all. We use computers for the math, Lisa clarified. Trigonometry, celestial mechanics, that sort of thing. But the basic principles come from thousands of years of maritime navigation.